Welcome back. In first few modules, in first few lectures, we saw accurate methods of structural analysis. Those were displacement methods and force method. And now we are into approximate methods of analysis. And in the previous lecture, we have seen the Portal method of structural analysis. Now we are seeing cantilever method of structural analysis. What is the difference in Portal method and cantilever method? Let us know that, and also let us see how to apply this method. And we are going to see about this method through one numerical example itself, because out of three assumptions in Portal method and cantilever method, two are just the same. There is only difference in the third assumption. So, taking example, one numerical example, we will try to see how to apply cantilever method. So, here is our multi-span, multi-florid frame. 6 meters, 8 meters are the horizontal spans. 6 meters, 4 meters are the heights, and we have 20 kilonewtons and 40 kilonewtons rightwards forces acting at points F and G. We are supposed to analyze this frame using cantilever method. Assumption number 1, as I said, is very similar to the Portal method. That is, we will assume that all the beams have their points of contraflexure at the mid span, which means these points are where the bending moments are zero. These points are where the bending moment changes its sign from sagging to hogging. Let me call these as 1, 2, 3 and 4. What is the second assumption? Again similar to the Portal method, that all the columns, all the vertical members have their points of contraflexure exactly at mid heights. That means if this is 4 meters, exactly at 2 meters from top and bottom, we are having points of contraflexure, let's say 5, 6 and 7. So is the case for even the bottom flooring, ground flooring. So we have points of contraflexure at 3 meters and 3 meters. Let me call these as 8, 9 and 10. So these two assumptions are very similar, or the beginning of Portal method and cantilever method is quite similar, I should say. Then where the difference occurs in Portal method, you must be remembering that the third assumption was that the interior column carries shear twice or double the exterior columns, and then we had assumed V, 2V, V, or V prime, 2V prime, V prime, like that. So the Portal method had the assumption about the shear carried by columns. Now that is where the cantilever method is different. The assumption is not regarding the shear force carried by the columns, it is regarding the axial force carried by the columns. That is, if I consider F of Fg, F of He, F of Kd, or for that matter F of AF, F of BE, F of CD, there is some assumption about the axial force carried by these columns. What is that assumption? That assumption I have written here: axial force in each column is proportional to the distance from centroid of areas of columns. Axial force carried by each column, how much is the magnitude of that axial force or amount of axial force? It is proportional to the distance of that column from the centroid of column group at that particular story level at that particular floor. Now, this is a vague statement. I can appreciate you may not have understood it fully. So, let me actually try to handle this particular numerical example, this situation, so that you will perfectly come to know, okay, it is like this. What have I done? Below this front view, below this elevation, I have drawn the top view of our frame. Let us say these columns have cross-sectional areas A1, A2 and A3. Then considering this particular point as origin or reference point, first of all I am trying to find the centroid of areas A1, A2 and A3. So what are we doing? First of all, understand that the third assumption, the cantilever method assumption, is not regarding shear carried by column but axial force carried by column. And what is the assumption? Each axial force is proportional to the distance of that column from the centroid of areas of that column group. Column group means first flory, second flory, like that. That's why I am calling it column group. So in top view, let us say that A1, A2 and A3 are the areas. We are assuming that 1 and 2, both the flories have same cross-sectional area. So we don't have separate calculations for this flory and that flory. Number 1. Secondly, if A1, A2, A3 are the areas of those three columns, then how do I find X bar, that is position of centroid? Let us say from this extreme end, it is going to be A1x1 plus A2x2 plus A3x3 upon A1 plus A2 plus A3, an expression which is fairly very well known to all of us. Now I substitute, and while doing so, what we are further observing, since no different areas are mentioned for left column, right column, middle column, no separate areas are mentioned for ground flory, first flory, likewise. So we are assuming that all these columns have same cross-sectional areas. That means A1, A2, A3 are equal. If they are equal, A1, A2, A3 will come out as common factor A. Inside the bracket I will have x1 plus x2 plus x3. Now since this is my origin, I will write here O so that there is no confusion. If O is my origin with respect to which I am measuring my centroid, then obviously x1 is 0 because position of the first column from origin is 0. First column is at origin itself. Second column position is 6 meters away. Third column position is 6 plus 8, that is 14 meters away. That's why I am writing common area A into bracket 0 plus 6 plus 14 divided by A1 plus A2 plus A3 will yield 3 times A, common area A. So this is 3A, giving me 6.67 meters as my X bar. Please observe, this is 6 meters or this is 6 meters. 6.67, so slightly more than 6 meters. That means in top view, somewhere here lies the center of gravity. Let me call it CG. Not to be confused with this alphabet C or this alphabet G. That's why I am calling it CG, center of gravity or centroid. So this is where the centroid is. This total distance is given as 6.67. Or let me additionally write here, this small distance is 0.67 meters. I just hope that the diagram is not too confusing. Otherwise you may please go for the zooming and confirm that all the details are understood. 6 meters, 8 meters and 0.67 meters. So overall from origin the centroid lies at 6.67 meters. Great. I have written at level 2, that means at this top level, and now what am I doing? Passing through these points of inflection, I am developing a section. So again this step, let me call it section XX. This step is again similar to our portal method. Once I have taken section XX, I am isolating the part which is above the section, that is part 5, G, H, K up to 7. I am isolating and its FBD I am drawing. However, I am not drawing complete FBD. I am not showing their horizontal shears at all. I am only showing axial forces because our assumption in cantilever method is regarding axial force. Secondly, I am going to use such an equation where whether I show these horizontal shears or not will not make any difference. I repeat, above section XX, I have shown FBD of the portion. But this FBD is incomplete. I have not shown horizontal shears. I have only shown axial forces. Why is it so? Because our assumption is regarding axial forces in cantilever method, number 1. And secondly, I am going to use such an equation where whether I show the horizontal shears or not will not make any difference. How? That we will see. Observe the forces that I have shown. F of AG, I have shown pulling means tensile. F of EH, I have shown pulling again means tensile. And F of DK, I have shown pushing means compressive. Now what is the logic behind showing these two forces as tensile and this force as compressive? Try to understand. If I project my centroid, it is going to be a projection line like this. Now if you look at the forces, they are lateral forces, rightward forces like this. So it's a good guess that members on the right side will undergo compression because there will have that compressive, that pressure action, whereas members on the left side will have a lifting action, uplifting action. They should be in tensile. Now how about this member? This is in tension, this is in compression, that is fairly understood. What about this member? So for that, the logic that we are using is, since the member is on the left of centroid, this is a rough guess, this is a thumb rule. If we go wrong, very naturally we are going to alter the sign, but the thumb rule says that the members which are on one side of the centroid of group of columns, they will carry similar force, that is both these we are assuming to be carrying tension. And the column which is on the other side of the centroid of column groups, it is supposed to be carrying compression. So I am showing pulling forces here and pushing force here, that is F of Fg is tensile, F of EH is tensile, and F of dk is assumed to be compressive. Now how do I find these forces? So first of all, see what I am writing. The assumption is axial force in each column is proportional to the distance of that column from centroid. So if I consider F of EH and F of Fg, if I consider these two columns, this column is very close to the centroid, this column is far away from centroid, so this column will carry smaller force because its distance from centroid is less, and this column will carry larger force because its distance from centroid is long. So F of Fg upon its distance is equal to F of EH upon its distance from centroid, that is I am using proportionality, and that is what the assumption is about. So the same thing I am writing it in certain other way, F of EH upon F of Fg, that is force carried by this column upon force carried by this column, equal to distance of that column upon distance of the other column, that is 0.67, which is this much distance, upon 6.67, that is total distance of Fg column from centroid. So just see, that you understand this particular expression, because this is the beginning of our cantilever method, or I should say this is the key factor, most important. This part makes the method different from portal method. In portal method we have assumption about shear force, in cantilever method we have assumption about axial force. So since the force is supposed to be proportional in magnitude to its distance from centroid, force in EH upon force in FG is equal to distance of EH from centroid upon distance of FG from centroid. That is the simple equation I have written. That gives me f of EH is equal to 0.1 times f of FG. A very simple adjustment of terms. And now this is one equation in two unknowns, so I need one more equation to find both. So obviously I am going for sigma m about 7 equal to 0, this particular point of contraflexure. The beauty of this equation is neither f of dk is making any movement about this point, nor horizontal shear H5, H6, H7 are going to create any movement. Try to understand that. Because whatever horizontal shear at 5, 6 and 7 I show, their line of action is going to pass through point 7. So even though those horizontal shears are unknown to me, their movement about point 7 is 0. And that is why I have not shown those shear forces in my FBD. So great, I am applying sigma m about 7 equal to 0. F of EH and F of FG are creating anti-clockwise movement and 20 kilonewton is creating clockwise movement. That is my equation about 14 times F of FG plus 8 times F of EH. Positive because anti-clockwise. Minus 20 into 2. This distance is 2 because total is 4. Our point of inflection is at midpoint 7. That is why 2 meters here. That's why clockwise negative 20 into 2 equal to 0. On solving this equation, what I will do, f of EH, I will replace by 0.1 times f of FG. So this will become 0.8 f of FG, means overall it will become 14.8 f of FG, and on the right hand side I have 40. That's it, just make the division. You are getting f of FG as 2.7 kilonewtons and you are getting f of EH as 0.1 times f of FG, means 0.27 kilonewtons. Both the answers are positive, means our assumed pulling sense or sense of tension is correct. That's why I am saying this is 2.7 kilonewtons tensile, this is 0.27 kilonewtons tensile. Once I know this force and this force, how do I find this force is obvious. I will apply sigma Fy equal to 0 for that part. Again in sigma Fy equal to 0, horizontal shears H5, H6, H7 will not play any role, so that applying sigma Fy equal to 0, I directly get f of dk is equal to 2.97 kilonewtons. Again positive answer means the assumed pushing sense or compression is correct. Go through this carefully. Whatever have I written, right from finding centroid up to what we have written for the upper level, level 2, just go through it. It is all simple. It is slightly different from portal method, that's all. No big deal. Then I go to level 1. Level 1 means what? Passing through 8, 9 and 10, I am imagining a section. Let me call it section YY. I will isolate portion which is above YY, that is from 8 to G to K to 10, and that FBD I have shown here along with 20 kilonewton force, 40 kilonewton force, please don't forget this. F of AF, F of EB and F of CD, these two again assumed to be tensile on one side of the centroidal line, and this is supposed to be compressive on the other side of the centroidal line. And again, I have not shown H of 8, H of 9, H of 10, that is horizontal shears have not been shown. For the reason that I am going to first of all apply sigma m about 10 equal to 0, and later on I am going to apply sigma Fy equal to 0. In both these equations, those horizontal shears will not play any role. So yes, my first assumption I am writing f of EB upon f of AF, force in EB upon force in AF is equal to distance of EB from centroid upon distance of AF from centroid. That is the assumption of cantilever method, that axial force in a column is proportional to its distance from centroid of the column group. So I am writing f of EB upon f of AF is equal to 0.67 upon 6.67. Obviously, you will get f of EB is equal to 0.1 times f of AF, an expression quite similar to what we found in upper fluid. It has to be similar. Then I am applying sigma m about 10 equal to 0. These two are creating anti-clockwise movements. These two are creating clockwise movements. That is my sigma m about 10 equal to 0 equation. 14 times AF plus 8 times f of EB. 14 times f of AF plus 8 times f of EB minus 260. Where from am I getting minus 260? Check here. This is 20 multiplied by 7. 4 meters plus half of 6, that is 3. So 4 plus 3, that is 7. 20 multiplied by 7 clockwise would be 140 negative, and then 40 multiplied by 3 would be 120 clockwise, that is negative again. So minus 140 minus 120, I am writing negative 260 equal to 0. This is giving me f of AF is equal to 17.57 kilonewtons. Positive answer means assumed tension is correct. F of EB is giving me 1.76 kilonewtons. Again positive answer means tension is correct. This I am substituting here to solve my equation, and I am getting these two answers, and then I am simply applying sigma Fy equal to 0, so that I am getting f of CD is equal to 19.33 kilonewtons. Positive answer means assumed compression is correct. So we have applied cantilever method. First we have found the centroid of the areas of group of columns. Followed by we have applied the assumption of cantilever method, that axial force is proportional to distance from centroid, and then some simple equilibrium equations have enabled us to find axial force in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns, all the columns at both the floors. Once that is done, the remaining part is again quite similar to Portal method. That is, we have to isolate 5G1, 1H26, 2K7, then 5F8, 3, 3, 4, 6, 9 and 4, 7, D10. These portions, that is from one point of inflection to another point of inflection, those rigid portions of the frame we isolate. We consider FBD of each frame, each part. Each part will roughly be showing 3 unknowns. We have 3 equations, sigma m, sigma Fy, sigma Fx. We solve those equations. We get all axial forces and all shear forces at points 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 10. So that is what I have shown here. And now, like previous problem or like previous lecture, I have not shown all the calculations because now it is obvious. For example, when I draw FBD of 5G1, that FBD will look like this. This is point G, this is 1, This is 0.5. What do I know? I know that it is subjected to 20 kilonewtons rightward force, and I also know that F of Fg is a pulling force, tensile force, and that we have calculated as 2.7 kilonewtons. So that force I am showing here. However, H of 5 is unknown, H of 1 is unknown, and V of 1 is unknown. That is, this axial force, this shear force, and this shear force, they are unknown to us. Don't get confused by the words axial and shear. Perpendicular to any member is a shear force. Along the member is axial force. And H and V are just horizontal and vertical. They have nothing to do with words axial and shear. H is for horizontal, V is for vertical. Here, horizontal is becoming shear force for this column. Here, horizontal is becoming axial force for the beam. That is obvious. How shall we solve this? I will apply sigma Fy equal to 0. I will first get V1. Then I will apply sigma m about 1 equal to 0. I will get H5. And once I get H5, I will apply sigma Fx equal to 0. I will get answer for H1. Once I get H1, V1 and H5 on the neighboring FBD, on the neighboring portion, I will be showing equal and opposite forces so that my equilibrium is satisfied, my give and take is perfectly represented. Not only on the right side, on below also. Likewise, step by step, I will develop these FBDs. You may go through these FBDs carefully. In each FBD, I have shown known force for that FBD by red color and unknowns by yellow color. And you are observing that almost in every FBD, there are 3 yellow colored marks, that is 3 unknowns, except this FBD and this FBD where we have only 1 unknown. It is easiest to solve. So, solve these FBDs. Now, this exercise we have done in our previous problem, in our previous lecture, so I am not repeating it here. You please do it carefully because anyway you have to master it with a lot of practice on your own. And suppose I have shown here rightwards, but I must have got a negative answer, means it was actually leftwards. So its opposite rightwards I have shown here, 15.95 kilonewton. This same exercise we had done earlier also, in our previous problem also. This I must have found out to be positive, that means upwards is correct. So its counterpart downwards, 2.7 kilonewtons I have shown in adjoining figure. So likewise, don't copy my diagrams at a stretch. Once at a stretch, don't do that please. Show this FBD, solve this FBD, know the actual sense, left or right, up or down. Then go to the adjoining member and then try to show equal and opposite sense on the adjoining member so that the give and take criterion will be satisfied. So yes, after solving all these FBDs, which are 6 FBDs in all, so you have to apply the 3, 3, 3, 3. That is 12 equations plus one more there and one more there. That means 40 equations in all. That is some amount of work, no doubt. And then you get all your axial forces and all your shear forces. Now, how do we develop shear diagram, or how do we mark shear forces, axial forces, and how do we develop moment diagram? That I am trying to show here. First of all, for the lower portion this is rightwards, for the upper portion this must have been leftwards. So I have shown up, left, lower one, right. And I have written the magnitude 4.05. I have not written the unit here because the diagram becomes too crowded, but it is kilonewton. Likewise, from these FBDs, on each beam and on each column, I have marked the maximum shear at the point of contraflexure, being careful that for upper portion it is leftwards, for lower portion it is rightwards, for left portion it is upwards, for right portion it is downwards. So these signs and these magnitudes you are getting from your FBDs. Once this is done, how do I develop my bending moment diagram is very simple. For example, if I consider this beam, this particular force is creating sagging moment. So I draw positive ordinate here. All the variations are going to be linear because we have point loads acting at the joints. We don't have any UDL or any other kind of load. At point of inflection it is becoming 0 and then linearly it is increasing up to here. How much should be this value? So it is obvious this distance, which is half of this distance, this is 6 meters, that means this distance is 3 meters. If that distance is 3 meters, 2.7 multiplied by 3, that is going to be the amount of this magnitude, and same is going to be the value of this moment or bending moment. 2.7 multiplied by 3, this is hogging, so negative. This I am writing as positive, this I am writing as negative. Again we are back to the similar exercise that we did in Portal method. Similarly, this is 2.97, this total distance is 8, means half the distance is 4 meters. So 2.97 multiplied by 4, I am getting sagging bending moment here, linear variation, 0 at point of inflection, linear variation. Again this amount is going to be 2.97 multiplied by 4 but hogging. So simple. 14.87 into 3 sagging, linear, 0, linear, hogging, 14.87 into 3. 16.36 into 4 sagging, so positive, linear to 0, point of inflection, linear onwards, 16.36 into 4 hogging, so negative. This is my moment diagram for the beams. In the same fashion, I will try to look at the drawing from here. This is creating sagging bending moment. This is creating hogging bending moment. Linear variation, 0 value at the point of inflection, and this amount is going to be 4.05 multiplied by 2 meters. This amount is going to be 4.05 multiplied by 2 meters. Likewise, I will be developing bending moment diagram for all the columns. Observe. So simple. Sagging, hogging, sagging again, hogging. Again I have similar variation here, sagging to hogging, sagging to hogging. So as I discussed just now, as I explained just now, and as we did in our previous problem, you please work out these values. It is extremely simple. 17.81 multiplied by this distance. Total height is 6. So half the height is 3 meters. So you will get all these values. So this is our moment diagram. Plus at the point of inflection where bending moment is 0, shear force is maximum. So we have shown maximum shear forces. This sign has to be like this. Above, right, below, left. Like that. A small correction here. Please note this correction. All these shear forces are like this only. On the upper side leftwards, on the lower side rightwards. And then we have drawn bending moment diagrams. And then near each member, you can write the axial force value which you will be getting from our FBDs. For example, if I consider member FG F of Fg is 2.7 kilonewtons positive. So you are writing P is equal to 2.7. Positive answer means tension. On the other hand, clearly this is a pushing force, not a pulling force. That means it is compressive force. So this F of GH, you will be writing here. You may write P of GH or you may write F of GH is equal to negative 15.95. That is your axial force in this particular member. Likewise, if the force is pulling, you write tension as positive. If the force is pushing, you write compression as negative. You can write all the axial force values. If you find it writing tough here, then you can create another additional table. You can just write member and you can write forces the way we used to do in trusses in first year engineering mechanics. Very simple. F of AB, F of BC, F of CD, so on and so forth. Yes, so that is the cantilever method, approximate method of structural analysis. The assumptions are, as we saw while beginning with this numerical example, that all the beams are having points of inflection at midspans, all the columns are having points of inflection at midspans, and the columns are carrying axial forces which are proportional to the distance of that column from centroid of the area of column groups at that particular level. So we just generate one simple plan. We calculate the centroid, we assume axial forces, and then we simply write the proportionality so that we get some relation between the axial forces, and then using equilibrium we are first finding axial forces in all columns, followed by we are having several FBDs from point of inflection to point of inflection, the rigid portions which are falling in between. And then each FBD has only 3 unknowns, a couple of FBDs have hardly one unknown, and we easily, by applying sigma m, sigma fy, sigma fx, get all our answers. So great, this is the cantilever method. Earlier we saw portal method. Just understand the difference between the two methods, which is only at this particular stage, and you will be able to solve any problem on your own. So in my next lecture, we will be seeing yet another approximate method, not for frames but for analysis of beams, and that analysis will be slope deflection analysis called as finite difference method. A numerical technique, an approximate method to find out the slope and deflection in a given beam. So see you in the next lecture for finite difference method, the last part of our unit number 5 or module 5. Thank you.